my channel. We're here today to talk about the books that I read in February. Brief recap. We're going to make it brief because we have our trusty iPad, almost obsolete iPad mini. We're going to talk about each book for a minute or less, and that's it. No cheating today. That's the plan, that's the goal. So, in February, I only finished 10 books. I still have some books that I carried over. And, in other months, I may have just tried to rush through those books, today being the 1st of March, and then included them. But I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. I finished 10 books, and that's where it is. And all the other books that I'm still reading, because there are 4. If you watched my video yesterday, you'll know. Trying to make it 4 or 5 or no more, more than that. Books that I'm reading right now. So, finished 10 books, and so this video should be about 11 minutes, 1 minute for preamble and 1 minute each per book. So here are the 10 books that I read in February. First we have to start the timer, right? So start. So first book that I finished in February was A Likely Story by Lee McMullen Abramson. This was a NetGalley download and I really liked it. It was about the author's life, and so we're reading about a man who's an author, a pretty accomplished author, and his young daughter who wants to be an author and is having some difficulty getting her first book accepted by a publisher, and a little bit about her finding out what that process really entails. Then we get a little bit of the story about the man and his wife. His wife has now passed away, and how his wife figured into him becoming this accomplished writer. And so it's a little bit of switching timelines and switching perspectives as we see the man and his wife in the early stages of their marriage, and now that she is gone, the relationship between the man and his daughter, both of them being authors at various points in their lives and careers. So really like that. So can't wait for that to be released by the publishers, coming later this year, so we'll read it and chat about it more even then. The next book that I finished was another NetGalley download. This is 7 Rules for Breaking Hearts by Kristen J. Miller, and this one was, in comparison to the first, this one was not quite as successful for me. The characters are a lot younger. We're reading about a young lady in her mid-20s, and she and her best friend have a podcast about rules for staying single. So how to play the field and how to, have fun with the boys, but not get tied down by commitments. And then, as it turns out, the best friend starts a relationship and is about to get married, and so now they're needing to find out where their podcast will go, the evolution of their lives, the evolution of their friendship. And so it's a little bit about this main character finding love, and about the change in their life because of this new marriage. So yeah, time is up. I think I've talked about this book before. So I liked it, and I think this is a galley phase. I think when the book is edited, I'm going to like it a lot more. So when it is published, I'll probably reread it and chat some more about it then. So let's start the timer, because the next book I'm probably going to want to talk a lot about. So Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. I did a single book review about this. So it's about a man, an American man who goes to live in Paris, and it's about him discovering himself and seeing how he is away from the pressure of his father's expectation for him. So his mother is passed away, and he was raised by his mother and his aunt, and he knows that they have strong feelings about what they want for him out of life. And so he has to go away to figure out what he wants instead. But he finds that even in another country, he's also still buoyed by expectations that other people put on him. So friends and people that he's in relationships with, and what abuse may look like in different kinds of relationships. And also, just the weight of expectation and pressure that relationships can put on a person. So really, really like this. So yeah, a minute, time is up. So I had to stop because I spoiled the book. So I had to edit. So we're back to chat about Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. So this is my 3rd book that I'm reading from Elizabeth Acevedo, and I love her writing. She's writing for young adult or older audience. So you could be the age of these characters and really appreciate the story, but you could also be an older person and really love the writing style. Elizabeth Acevedo is trying to combine the experience of cultures, people who are from the Dominican Republic and people who are living in the United States and maybe exposed to these cultures but may not be a part of them, all of that. So love, love, love how she presents the culture of the Dominican Republic and a lot about the food and the music and just the experience of island life. I know time is up and I said I wasn't going to cheat, but I do need 10 more seconds for this one. So we're reading about a man who is on a plane heading back to the Dominican Republic to visit, and when his plane goes down, the fallout about these two girls, one in the United States and one in the Dominican Republic, and how their lives change after this plane crash. So I love that there are two planes on the front of this cover. Like, there are two girls, two planes. What the planes mean for each of these girls. Man, love, love, love that book. Love Elizabeth Acevedo's writing. And that one's also written in verse. Did I mention that? Yeah. Okay, so back to our timer because we're going to try again, right? So the next book that I read was The Cuban Heiress by Chanel Clayton. This was another NetGalley download. The Cuban Heiress is about a man and woman who are engaged to be married, but they're both keeping secrets from each other about the truth of their financial status. Neither of them is as rich as they are pretending to be, but also neither of them really wants to get married, so why are they engaged? In any case, they are aboard this ship called the Mora Castle, which is a real ship. And so this is historical fiction aboard a ship that had some tragedies happen in the early 1900s. And so we're reading about this ship in the Caribbean, and it passes through Cuba, and they're able to visit Cuba, and we get a little bit of the Cuban Revolution, how it's experienced by the people. Fantastic read, fantastic read. So let's get back out the trusty timer because I'm gonna want to blow it out of the water this time, but I'm gonna limit myself to a minute to chat about A Mercy by Toni Morrison. Love Toni Morrison's writing. Like, even when you feel like you don't understand everything about her writing in the beginning, just press through, press forward, push on, because she gives you so much to think about. In this one, we're reading about 1690s America, the land that will become the United States of America. So people who are living before the Revolutionary War. And so we're reading from different perspectives, people who are in commitments that they don't necessarily want to be in or wouldn't necessarily have chosen for themselves, and how they experienced it, how they got into those situations, what their lives are like, and how they may see themselves coming out at some point. So we read about enslavement, we read about marriage, we read about commitments to religion and religious houses, but also about people who work as indentured laborers, and a lot about the tragedy that befalls people, things that they choose, but also things that are thrust upon them. So highly recommend Toni Morrison. All of her books that I have read thus far, I could highly recommend. But this one was beautiful because it is kind of sparse. I mean, a lot of her writing is just ignoring the timer at this point. But yeah, A Mercy by Toni Morrison. Love that. And everybody read that with the ladies, and we all agree that Toni Morrison is the master. So putting on the timer, because then I read Manifesto by Bernardine Evaristo, and I can't chat too much about this because this is a BookTube Prize read. So just briefly, I'll mention that Bernardine Evaristo was the first Black woman to win the Booker Prize, and so this is her memoir, a little bit about growing up as a Black British woman, daughter of immigrants, and how her upbringing informed her decision to live an alternate lifestyle, to become a writer, to become a journalist, how she went on to create a festival that recognizes African poets, and other things that she's doing as an activist to put the work of people from the African diaspora out into the world in a bigger way. So can't talk too much about the book, can't compare it to other books, but yeah, that was another book that I read in February. The next book that I finished was The Chemistry of Love by Soraya Wilson. This was another NetGalley download, finished 4 NetGalley things in February. Really proud of that. So this one is about a 20-something-year-old woman who's a scientist. She's working as a cosmetic chemist for a big cosmetic company, and she decides to quit her job because she wants to pursue her own dream. She wants to start her own cosmetic company, and the ideas that she was having in her old job, she wasn't able to really pursue them. So she decides to branch off on her own, and another benefit is that it allows her now to pursue a relationship with her boss, which she couldn't do when she was working at the company. So it's about what it means when people who may be seen as weird by other people, how when you find a person who is authentically for you, two people who other people may view as really weird, when those two people get together, they're really perfect for each other, and what that means. The exploration of science in romance is just fantastic. I loved this book. So, looking forward to when that one is published so we can chat even more about it. The Chemistry of Love by Sarai Wilson. So, then I finished The Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. Oh, I need to put on back my timer. So, The Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. I loved a lot of things about this book. There was one part of the book that I didn't love as much, but it was really interesting and informative to read everything. So even the parts that scared me, I'm happy that I read it. I just needed a couple of days away from it, so it's not like a present scary. So I can talk about it objectively. So this is wow, half of the minute has gone. So this one describes the World's Fair that happened in Chicago in 1893, a little bit about the process of Chicago winning the rights to have the fair and what it meant to set up the fair, the execution of those plans as it was experienced by the world who went to Chicago in this time to see the fair, and also about a serial killer who was doing his deeds around the same time and taking advantage of the people who were coming to the fair to carry out his misdeeds. So, love Eric Larson's writing because he is a narrative nonfiction writer, and so he takes historical events and writes in such a way like it feels like you're reading a novel, but you're reading about something real. It's not historical fiction. He's not making stuff up. He's using lots of different sources to bring to you the real story, and I love his writings. It just, reading about this scary stuff, it really did a number on me. So that's why I was saying that it wasn't my best read, but I love Eric Larson's writings. I still want to read everything that he has published. I have another book from him on my shelves, which I'll probably get to very soon. So last time I'm setting the timer for this video because last book was Sherwood Anderson's Winesburg, Ohio, and I buddy read this, and we read it throughout the month. So this is interconnected short stories, but the stories are not always connected. So we're reading about a town, and we're reading about the characteristic of the town through reading different people's lives. And sometimes you saw some of the characters coming back in later stories. There are a couple of people who are mentioned very often. Like our main character seems to be a young man who's a writer, an aspiring writer, and seems to be a little bit of a stand-in for the author himself. And we get two other characters who are also men who are writers, and they seem to be the author writing himself into these stories, writing himself into this town at various points in his life, and a little bit about the relationships that he has with girls and with boys and with his father and his mother, and telling their stories. So while the stories didn't, okay, time is up. So while the stories didn't always feel like they were linked, like you may expect modern interconnected short stories to do, this was first written in the early 1900s, and I think Sherwood Anderson may even have been a pioneer of this kind of writing. So it was really interesting to see how that style has evolved, but also how the author Sherwood Anderson is writing about this town and writing the characteristics of the town without necessarily always writing about the people. And even when the people don't seem like they are coming back as individual characters, we see them coming together as a town and being represented as a town. So I love this. I love this book. The writing itself was brilliant. Like, there were places in here where the writing was just so vivid and graphic, and just like you wanted to spend time with it, even if it wasn't always happy things that were happening on the pages. So those are the 10 books that I finished in February. I have lots of books that I have around me. I have lots of books that I have around me. And so I have 4 books that I am still continuing and will be carrying over to finish in early March, and we'll chat about them at that point. So I still have to finish the Run Right Reads book club pick, which is Diasporica by Ileana Maisonette. It's a memoir, and I've been reading it kind of slowly, going through the recipes and the writing, the personal writing. So not completely finished with that. So we'll talk about that in the next video, I suppose. Also still reading Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, because that's a read aloud, going through that slowly. I'm also still finishing my second BookTube prize book. I am behind. I'm so behind on that project, but gonna try to catch up in the next week or so. And Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin is another book that I started and didn't completely finish. So we'll chat about those in my next video. Hopefully by Friday I'll have finished those books, or 3 of those books, that I can talk more about them then. And then, of course, my video, which is going to be my discussion of the books that I want to read, that I want to start reading in March. So my March TBR is coming soon, so look out for that. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. It was a little bit of a fail again with the timer, because you know me, I just sometimes ignore all the rules and just press on. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below, what was your favorite book that you read in February. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you come back for the next one, and until then, happy reading. Bye.